you hear me okay? I was told last time I wasn't quite loud enough, so wanted to make sure. Well, I don't want to eat it. But it's nice to see so many here this morning. We have quite a lot more than we did last time, and I assume it's all this one red table here, mostly for Martha. As he said, my name is Searcy-Vaneman, and everybody knows me pretty much as just Ann, because no one can ever remember the last name or pronounce it. I was born in Bessemer, Alabama, and have lived in Cullman since the 90s. I chose to move here after a divorce, and I had a small son that I wanted to raise in a wholesome environment, a wholesome Christian environment. And, you know, we looked at all the surrounding areas, and since my family is mostly from here, we came here. You may know my father. His name is Jim Searcy. He's from the Searcys out of Addison. My grandparents were Tuckers who lived in Jones Chapel, and, you know, we've been here since the 90s. I would like to be your nominee for the office of the probate judge. When I've talked to people, they're not exactly always sure what a probate judge does. I've heard people ask me, oh, is that the one where you go to get your tickets taken care of? And I have to explain to them that it's not really, because the probate judge is where, you know, you will need them at some point in your life. You know, I remind them that's where you go when you get your licenses. If you have a will, that's where you go to have it, you know, probated. And I explain to people that, you know, you may not need it today, but at some point in your life, you will need the probate judge. You know, whether it is you have an elderly parent who needs protection with either a guardian or a conservatorship if they can no longer handle their own finances, or if, you know, after you pass, you have property that you want to have go to somebody. You know, the probate judge is in charge of overseeing who gets your property. We've all heard stories of families where when one parent dies, you know, the remaining parent dies, the family falls apart because one aunt or uncle got all the property and everybody else is angry because, you know, they didn't get their share. And that's the job of the probate judge, is to make sure that the laws are followed and they're followed fairly. There are problems with the office now. As you know, you've probably heard there are hearings which are done sometimes without the judge, which should be the judge's responsibility. Also, you may not know that the indigent, the people that have no money or have very little money, if they become incompetent, they need a conservator and a guardian just like everybody else does. And the way the system works now is it relies on attorneys' generosity to take on these cases. And, you know, if it's a case where they have money, sure, an attorney will take it. But it's the ones who have no money that kind of fall between the cracks. If no one steps forward to be a guardian and conservator, it defaults to the sheriff. The sheriff to pay their bills. And I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd rather the sheriff be using their funds to be protecting us, not necessarily paying bills for somebody. Do you agree? So, there are statutes that have been passed that allow the creation of a non-profit corporation to take care of the mentally handicapped that have no money. And it's done with the cooperation of mental health, and that's one of the things that I think we really need to have put in place, because they deserve just as much protection as we do. My qualifications for the position, you know, as you know, you probably have seen my little card here. I am essentially a retread, as my friends in law school used to call me. I had a life. I had several careers before I went to law school. I actually turned 40 my first year of law school, and, you know, everybody told me, you can't go back to law school once you're that age, which, you know, is wrong. You can. But, you know, I did have 25 years of work experience in the real world before even considering going back to college. I've managed offices. I've managed to supervise a staff of over 30 individuals in the retail setting. And, you know, since going back to college, I've practiced law for the past 4 years, 2 years of which I created and ran my own business. Essentially, what I have done with my own business is what the probate judge does, but I've done it in the private sector where, if you don't work hard, you don't get paid. And the skills that I've learned running my own business and also managing all these other offices is that, you have to be responsible for everyone underneath you. I mean, it's not enough that you know what you're doing, but you are the last line of responsibility. Everyone who works underneath you is your responsibility. It's good to know generally what the law is, but if you can't research the law, understand the law, and apply the law, then things aren't going to go the way they're supposed to. Because laws are there to protect us from unscrupulous people or organizations or sometimes even, government officials. And I think that between my years of work experience, my education, and the knowledge I've gained through law school, that I have a unique understanding of both aspects of the probate judge, the administrative side as well as the legal side. Because you have to understand the requirements right now, as Mr. Hicks said, if you're over the age of 18, you've been a resident of Alabama for a year and a citizen for a day, you qualify. But is that the most qualified person that you want for that position? So on November 13th, that's what the little magnets are for. Remember to vote, and I hope on that day you'll consider voting for me as your candidate for probate judge. Thank you.